In reviewing your conference call and listening to it and reviewing it, there's two separate things. You talk about a challenging environment currently, or at least for the last quarter. At the same time, you said looking ahead, you're cautiously optimistic as recent surveys of IT spending indicate year-over-year IT budget growth for this calendar year. So put the two in perspective for me as we try to figure out what the year ahead looks like for your company.
Yeah, David, first of all, thanks for having me. And I'm actually really proud of what our team's accomplished. If you look at what we discussed yesterday and what we announced, we had demand growth returning to positive. The last 3 quarters, we went from -10 to -5 to +1, with every customer segment improving: enterprise, commercial, service provider, public sector. Public sector grew 10%. Service provider was up 5% globally. Commercial came back to +1, and that was from like a depth of -20 plus a few quarters back. Our cloud and web scale business has begun to really accelerate for us. We gave data points over the last 5 quarters and now represents 25% of our service provider segment, grew triple digits in the quarter. We had the best gross margins we've had in 15 years. And we also announced, that we had generated $3.6 billion of software revenue in the quarter, 76% of which was coming as subscriptions. So overall, it's a great quarter. The teams have done a great job. And I think we're in the midst of the recovery, and we feel good about where we are.
In the midst of the recovery, meaning what? Specifically for infrastructure, because that, of course, has been a continued weakness, as you say. It's come well off the bottom, but it's nowhere near sort of where I'm sure you would like it to be or in a normalized version of the world would be.
Yeah, and we saw pockets of strength. We saw data center networking actually positive. We saw our Wi-Fi demand was up 20% year over year. We saw the Catalyst 9000 product continue with double-digit revenue growth. The web scale performance, the cloud performance that we talked about, is a lot of that was infrastructure platforms. So, the revenue view was sort of a backwards-looking number because, the demand that we saw in the quarter, if you think about sort of the extended lead times we're all facing from the semiconductor challenge, the demand signals, I think, are the most important things to look at. When you're looking at revenue from the prior quarter, you're really looking backwards and looking at the demand that we saw in the quarter. We're pretty optimistic about where we're going in the next 4 quarters.
I don't know, Chuck, there's a debate going on here, and it's one you're squared in with Mark Benioff. You actually have a moment in the conference call where you basically say, listen, people don't like being home. They don't want to be told to be home anymore. They're not happy. I mean, you kind of broke form. You said, people, they're not enjoying it. One of our employees the other day told me, I don't mind the option of working from home. I don't like being forced to work from home. If you force people to work from home, which is what people are doing, that's bad for you, okay? If you force them to go to work, it's great for you. Benioff says we're all going to stay at home for the foreseeable future. Will you solve this dilemma for me?
First off, Jim, happy birthday. Congrats on getting your second shot. I look forward to when we can all experience that. So, look, I think the issue is that it's going to be a hybrid world, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. And we could have announced 5 years ago that we were going to allow employees to work from home because we've always allowed employees to work from home. And so I think the issue is, you have workers who are going to go back several days a week, workers who are going to work from home a couple of days a week, and vice versa. Most are going to be in that mode. And the real question is, what does that do to your real estate footprint? I don't think we know the answer to that yet, because if you're an employee going back to the office, are you going to be comfortable going into a shared space where someone else was sitting the day before? Are you going to trust that it's been sanitized? Are you going to worry? Are you going to be okay with that? We don't know the answer yet. And so I think that, look, I know I've been back in the office some, and we've been preparing for earnings, and candidly, it's therapeutic. And I think that people need both, right? And that was the comment that our employee made. I'm sure that employee is appreciating their fame these couple of days. I saw Carl retweeted or tweeted that yesterday. And so I think we just have to wait and see. But I don't think it's going to be a dramatic shift from where we are today.
Well, I think it's going to be good. Keshe Rohr was on. He's the first guy who talked about for Palo Alto. The notion of hybrid should be great for particularly a company like Cisco. Obviously, Mark Benioff is thinking about that chair, thinking about going back in. He's actually doing that arrangement. There's some stuff that you do. I'm going to drill down. First, Acacia. We want to get this company to where it's 50% software. Does that get us there, or does it slow us?
Well, Acacia is going to help us in our web scale strategy, particularly, and also in our overall infrastructure platforms. When you think about as these new higher speed networks are built, a lot of the margin and a lot of the capabilities are in those optics. And so being able to have that in-house will certainly help us from an economic perspective. And then in our component strategy, as we talk about what we're doing with the cloud and web scale players, being able to sell them, silicon, sell them optics, if that's how they'd like to buy the technology, then it just gives us another aspect that's important to them. On the software front, again, we had $3.6 billion in the quarter, and it's a big move from a few years back relative to where we are on the software front.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.